Captain Jake Morrison walked across the bridge of his ship. The ESV Defiance was Earth's newest exploration vessel. It had been 3 months since something terrible happened. Earth's entire colonial fleet had vanished. 200 ships carrying the best people from Earth had simply disappeared. Jake looked at the star map on his screen. The outer rim territories showed nothing but empty space where the fleet should have been. No signals, no wreckage, no signs of life. It was like the ships had never existed at all. The other alien races in the galaxy were not surprised. They met at the Galactic Council and talked about humans like they were children who had played with fire. Ambassador Lisa Grant sat in the council chambers and listened to their harsh words. The Zephyrian delegates made rude faces. The bug-like arthropod representatives clicked their mandibles in a way that sounded like laughing. "Humans always try to do too much," said one of the Zephyrian leaders. His blue skin glowed with satisfaction. "They reach for things they cannot understand. This is what happens when a young race thinks it can explore the deep void." Lisa kept her face calm, but inside she felt angry. She had worked hard to build good relationships with these alien races. Now they were treating humans like failures. She wanted to tell them they were wrong, but she had no proof. The fleet was gone, and no one knew why. Back on Earth, Admiral Ryan Carter sat in his office at Fleet Command. He stared at the reports on his desk. Each paper told the same story. The ships had been there one day and gone the next. But Ryan knew something the aliens did not know. He had helped build those ships. He knew what they could do. The missing fleet was not just any group of ships. Each vessel had been equipped with new jump drives that could bend space and time. The technology was experimental and dangerous. Most scientists said it was impossible, but human engineers had made it work anyway. Ryan believed the fleet had not been destroyed. They had found something out there in the dark space between stars, or maybe something had found them. He picked up his communication device and called his best people. On a small space station orbiting a distant planet, Lieutenant Commander Alex Turner was watching his screens. The station was called Kepler Station, and it was very far from Earth. Alex's job was to watch for signals from deep space. He had been doing this work for 5 years, and he had never seen anything like what appeared on his screen that morning. Massive energy signature flashed across 12 different star systems at the same time. The energy burst lasted exactly 4.7 seconds. Then it was gone. Alex wrote down the time and location. He thought it might be a mistake with his equipment. But 72 hours later it happened again. Same energy pattern. Same duration. Same locations. Alex's hands shook as he realized what this meant. The pattern was too perfect to be natural. Someone or something was making these signals on purpose. Alex sent an urgent message to Earth. The message would take weeks to reach Admiral Carter, but Alex knew this was important. He had found the first clue about what happened to the missing fleet. Dr. Maya Rodriguez worked in a laboratory on the research station Haven. She was Earth's best expert on alien life forms. Maya had studied creatures from dozens of worlds. She understood how different species thought and communicated. When she received Alex's data, she immediately saw something others had missed. The energy signatures were not random. They formed a pattern based on mathematics that only humans would understand. The signals referenced star maps that Earth scientists had made. Someone was sending a message using Earth's own navigation system as a template. Maya felt her heart beat faster. This could only mean one thing. Humans were alive out there, and they were trying to communicate. But why were they sending such strange signals? And why did the energy readings show impossible levels of power? She called her assistant, Dr. Ben Adams, who worked on the lunar base near Earth. Ben was young but very smart. He spent his time listening to radio signals from space. "Ben," Maya said over the communication link, "I need you to scan for any unusual transmissions. Look for anything that uses Earth frequencies or human language patterns." Ben nodded and turned to his equipment. Within hours, he had found something amazing. On an emergency frequency that only Earth ships used, he detected a transmission. The voice was human, speaking English, but the words made no sense. "Phase transition complete. Temporal anchors stabilized, initiating convergence protocol." The transmission lasted only a few seconds before it cut off. Ben played it again and again, trying to understand what it meant. The voice sounded familiar, like someone he should know, but he could not place it. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, strange things were happening. Captain Zixthul of the Mantid Consortium was a mercenary who hauled cargo between star systems. He was not easily scared, but what he saw in the Vega sector made his blood run cold. His ship's sensors detected other vessels, but when he looked out the window, he saw nothing. The ships appeared on his screens as clear as day, but they were invisible to his eyes. They moved in perfect formation like they were following some unknown plan. "What are those things?" asked his co-pilot, a nervous creature with too many arms. Zixthul shook his head. "I have never seen anything like this. The sensors say they are ships, but they cannot be there. It is impossible." The phantom ships moved through space in ways that defied all known laws of physics. They seemed to bend reality around them, creating gravitational anomalies that disrupted normal space travel. Trade routes that had been used for thousands of years suddenly became dangerous. Back on Earth, President Patricia Wells called an emergency meeting. She gathered all the military leaders and scientists she could find. They met in a secure room deep underground, away from alien spies and listening devices. General Kevin Stone presented the latest reports. Long-range sensors had detected massive structures appearing in deep space. The structures would appear for a few minutes, then vanish without a trace. Each structure looked like it was built by humans, but the technology was far beyond anything Earth could create. "How is this possible?" asked President Wells. "Our fleet disappeared 3 months ago. They could not have built such things in that time." General Stone showed images on the main screen. The structures were enormous, bigger than entire cities. They seemed to be made of materials that glowed with their own light. Some looked like space stations, others like massive ships. All of them had the clean lines and practical design that marked human engineering. "There is something else," said General Stone. "These structures are not just big. They seem to exist in multiple places at the same time. Our sensors cannot get consistent readings." The room fell silent. Everyone understood what this meant, but no one wanted to say it out loud. Somehow the missing human fleet had become something beyond normal understanding. They had found technology or power that allowed them to do impossible things. President Wells looked around the room at the worried faces of her advisors. Earth's best and brightest people had vanished into the void. Now they were coming back, but they were no longer entirely human. The question was whether they were still friends or had become something else entirely. Outside the meeting room, the stars continued to shine in the cold darkness of space. Somewhere out there, Earth's lost children were doing things that would change the galaxy forever. The aliens who had laughed at human ambition were about to learn that they had greatly underestimated the species from the small blue planet. Dr. Maya Rodriguez sat in her laboratory aboard the research station Haven. She had been studying the strange energy signals for weeks. The patterns were becoming clearer, and what she found made her hands shake with excitement and fear. The signals were not just random bursts of energy. They formed complex mathematical sequences that seemed to reference star charts only humans would know. Someone was using Earth's own navigation systems to send messages across the galaxy, but the power levels required to send such signals were beyond anything humans had ever built. Maya called up star maps on her computer screen. She compared the signal locations with known human colony routes. The match was perfect. Whoever was sending these messages knew exactly where Earth's ships had traveled. They knew the secret paths that human explorers had used to reach the outer territories. "Computer, analyze signal strength," Maya said to her artificial intelligence system. The computer's voice was calm and electronic. "Signal strength indicates power source equivalent to the output of a small star. This level of energy production is not consistent with known human technology." Maya felt cold despite the warm air in her laboratory. How could humans generate that much power? The missing fleet had been equipped with advanced technology, but nothing that could create star-level energy outputs. On the other side of the galaxy, Captain Zixthul was having his own problems. The mantis-like alien had been flying cargo ships for 30 years. He thought he had seen everything space could throw at him. He was wrong. His ship, the Prophet Seeker, was traveling through the Andromeda spiral when his sensors started going crazy. The screen showed dozens of ships moving in perfect formation. But when Zixthul looked out his window, he saw nothing but empty space. "Boss," said his engineer, a small creature with scales and too many eyes, "the gravity readings are all wrong. Something big is bending space around us." Zixthul watched his instruments with growing alarm. The invisible ships were creating gravitational effects that should have been impossible. Space itself was being twisted and bent around the phantom vessels. His own ship was being pulled along by forces he could not see or understand. "Try to break free," Zixthul ordered. "Full power to engines." But the Prophet Seeker could not escape. The invisible force held them gently but firmly, like a parent carrying a child. For 10 minutes, they traveled with the unseen fleet. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the force released them. The sensor contacts vanished. The gravitational anomalies stopped. Zixthul and his crew were left floating in normal space, confused and frightened. They had just experienced something that challenged everything they knew about physics and space travel. Similar reports were coming in from across the galaxy. Trade captains spoke of ghost fleets that appeared on sensors but could not be seen. Passenger liners reported strange encounters with vessels that moved through solid matter, as if it were empty air. Even military patrols from the major alien powers were filing reports of impossible phenomena. Colonel Danny Brooks commanded Earth's remaining defensive fleet from his base on Luna. He received dozens of urgent communications from human frontier worlds. The messages all told similar stories. On New Geneva, a farming colony near the Galactic Rim, settlers reported seeing lights in the sky. The lights moved in formations that looked like military ship patterns. But when the colonists tried to contact the vessels, they received no response. The ships appeared to be human in design, but they were much larger than any Earth vessel. "They came in the night," reported Mayor Susan Clark from New Geneva. "Hundreds of lights moving across the sky like they owned the place. My grandson tried to record them with his camera, but the images came out all blurry and strange." Colony after colony reported similar sightings. The ships always appeared at night. They moved with obvious intelligence and purpose, but they never landed, never made contact, never responded to radio calls. Colonel Brooks studied the reports with growing concern. The sightings were increasing in frequency. Whatever was out there was becoming more active. The question was whether these mysterious ships were friend or foe. Back on Earth, President Patricia Wells met with her top advisors in the secure bunker beneath the Capitol. The reports from across human space painted a picture that was both hopeful and terrifying. "The good news," said General Kevin Stone, "is that these ships appear to be human in origin. The bad news is that they display technology far beyond our current capabilities." Dr. Carl Watson, Earth's leading physicist, had been analyzing the YO sensor data from the various encounters. His face was pale as he addressed the group. "Ladies and gentlemen, what we are seeing violates several fundamental laws of physics. These ships appear to move faster than light without using jump drives. They pass through solid matter without any apparent propulsion system. Most disturbing of all, they seem to exist in multiple locations simultaneously." The room fell silent. President Wells felt a chill run down her spine. "Are you saying these ships can be in 2 places at once?" Dr. Watson nodded grimly. "The sensor data suggests exactly that. We have confirmed sightings of identical vessels in star systems that are light years apart occurring at the same time. This should be impossible." Meanwhile, Lieutenant Ben Adams was having his own breakthrough at the Lunar Monitoring Station. He had been scanning emergency frequencies around the clock, looking for any trace of the missing fleet. His persistence was finally paying off. The transmission came at 0347 hours Earth time. Ben was drinking his 5th cup of coffee when the signal appeared on his screen. It was faint but definitely human in origin. The voice spoke English with an American accent. "Dimensional anchor established. Reality matrix stabilized. Beginning Phase 2 operations." Ben's coffee cup fell to the floor as he scrambled to record the transmission. The signal lasted only 12 seconds before it cut off, but in those 12 seconds, Ben heard something that made his blood run cold. The voice belonged to Captain Helen Price. Ben was sure of it. He had served under Captain Price 5 years ago. He knew her voice as well as his own mother's. But Captain Price had been aboard one of the missing colony ships. She should have been dead or lost in the void. Ben played the recording again and again. The voice was definitely Captain Price, but something was different. She sounded calm, almost detached, as if she was speaking from a great distance. The technical terms she used were not part of standard Earth military vocabulary. What did dimensional anchor mean? What was a reality matrix? These were not terms from any Earth science textbook. Ben immediately sent the recording to Dr. Maya Rodriguez on Haven Station. Maya received the file within hours and began her analysis. What she found made her question everything she thought. She knew about the missing fleet. Voice analysis confirmed that the speaker was indeed Captain Helen Price. But there were anomalies in the recording that made no sense. The voice carried harmonic frequencies that should not have been possible for a human throat to produce. It was as if Captain Price was speaking from multiple dimensions at the same time. Maya ran the recording through every analysis program she had. The results were consistent, but impossible. The voice pattern suggested that Captain Price was somehow existing in a state that allowed her to perceive and interact with multiple realities simultaneously. Dr. Rodriguez felt her scientific worldview crumbling. She had studied alien life forms for decades. She understood that the universe was full of strange and wonderful things, but this was different. This was humans doing things that should have been impossible for any species. She sent an urgent message to Admiral Carter on Earth. The message would take time to reach him, but Maya knew this information was crucial. The missing fleet was not just alive. They had become something that challenged the basic understanding of what it meant to be human. As Maya worked through the night, analyzing data and running simulations, she began to form a theory. The missing fleet had encountered something in deep space, something that had changed them on a fundamental level. They were still human, but they had evolved beyond the limitations of normal space and time. The question was whether this evolution was voluntary, or if something had been done to them, and more importantly, were they still the same people who had left Earth months ago, or had they become something entirely different? Outside the laboratory windows, the stars continued their ancient dance across the sky. Somewhere among those distant points of light, Earth's lost children were learning to manipulate the very fabric of reality. The galaxy would never be ready for what was coming next. Admiral Ryan Carter stood in the command center of Earth Fleet headquarters when everything changed. The communication came through on emergency frequencies at exactly 1400 hours, Earth Standard Time. The voice that spoke was one he recognized immediately, though it carried harmonics that made his soul tremble. "Admiral Carter," the voice said, seeming to come from everywhere at once. "This is Captain Laura Wells of the transformed fleet. We need to talk." Carter's hands shook as he activated the response system. Laura Wells was President Patricia Wells's daughter. She had been aboard the colony ship New Horizon when the fleet disappeared. For months, her mother had grieved for her lost child. "Laura," Carter said, his voice barely steady. "Is it really you?" The response came with a slight delay, as if the speaker was translating thoughts from dimensions human minds could not understand. "I am still Laura Wells, Admiral. But I am also more than that now. I exist in states that transcend your current understanding of individual consciousness. I speak for the transformed collective, but I retain my memories of Earth, my love for humanity, and my duty to protect what we once were." Carter activated the recording systems and opened a channel to President Wells. Within minutes, the president was in the command center, tears streaming down her face as she heard her daughter's voice. "Mom," Laura's voice continued, somehow knowing that her mother was listening. "I know you've been worried, I know you've mourned for us, but we are not dead. We have become what humanity was always meant to be." The communication continued for over an hour. Laura explained that the transformation had not been forced upon them. The ancient network they had discovered offered a choice to every member of the fleet. They could return to Earth unchanged, or they could accept evolution into beings capable of existing across multiple dimensions. Most of us chose to evolve, Laura said. Not because we wanted to abandon humanity, but because we saw what we could become. We saw the responsibility that came with such power, and we accepted it willingly. Laura went on to explain their purpose. The galaxy was approaching a critical point in its existence. Multiple realities were beginning to merge naturally, but without proper guidance, the process would destroy everything. The transformed humans had taken on the role of shepherds, guiding the convergence to ensure that all conscious life could survive and thrive in the new reality. We are preparing the galaxy for a transformation that will benefit every species, every world, every thinking being, Laura continued. But the process requires time and careful preparation. We have been building the framework needed to support expanded existence. Admiral Carter asked the question that had been troubling him for weeks. Laura, are you still human? Do you still care about Earth and humanity? The response came with a warmth that reminded Carter of the young woman who had left Earth months ago. We are more human than we have ever been, Admiral. Our evolution has not diminished our humanity. It has perfected it. We still feel love, loyalty, and responsibility, but now we feel these emotions on a cosmic scale. President Wells stepped forward, her voice breaking with emotion. Laura, what do you need from us? How can Earth help? You can help by trusting us, Mom, and by preparing humanity for what is coming. The convergence cannot be stopped. It is a natural process that occurs in every galaxy as it matures, but it can be guided to ensure that consciousness survives and grows rather than being destroyed. Over the following days, the transformed humans began making contact with civilizations across the galaxy. Each species received visits from transformed humans who had once been members of their allied crews or trade partners. The messages were always the same. The convergence was coming, but it would bring growth rather than destruction. Commander Steve Parker, who now served as Earth's official liaison to the transformed fleet, found himself in the unique position of communicating with beings who were both familiar and impossibly advanced. Steve, said Captain Helen Price during one of their conversations, you need to understand that we are still the people you knew. Our personalities, our memories, our values, all of these remain intact. But we now perceive existence from perspectives that span multiple dimensions simultaneously. Steve struggled to understand the implications. What will happen to us? To Earth? To all the normal people who haven't been transformed? Price's response was reassuring. Everyone will have the choice to evolve when the convergence occurs. The process will be gradual and voluntary. Those who choose to remain in their current state will be protected and supported. Those who choose to evolve will gain abilities similar to ours, but the transformation would offer benefits that went beyond individual evolution. The convergence would make space travel instantaneous, as distance would become negotiable. Time would become fluid, allowing communication with past and future civilizations. Reality itself would become a canvas that conscious beings could actively reshape. Across the galaxy, the other alien species were grappling with the implications of humanity's transformation. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session to discuss the unprecedented situation. The Zephyrian military commander who had once dismissed humanity now spoke with grudging respect. We must acknowledge that we gravely underestimated this species. They have achieved something that our oldest civilizations never dreamed possible. The crystalline collective's representatives sang in harmonies that conveyed wonder and fear. These transformed humans offer us evolution beyond our wildest dreams, but they also challenge every assumption we have made about the nature of existence. Some species embraced the coming changes. The Arthropod Consortium, despite their initial skepticism, saw the convergence as an opportunity to expand their hive consciousness across multiple dimensions. The Void Dwellers, who already existed partially outside normal space, were excited to finally meet beings who could match their dimensional abilities. But other species resisted. The proud Zephyrian Empire worried about losing their carefully structured society. The merchant guilds feared that instantaneous travel would disrupt their profitable trade routes. Some worlds demanded that the transformed humans stop their preparations and leave the galaxy unchanged. The transformed humans' response was patient but firm. Laura Wells addressed the Galactic Council directly, her image appearing simultaneously in every chamber. "The convergence is not something we are creating," she explained to the assembled alien representatives. "It is a natural process that occurs as galactic consciousness reaches maturity. We did not cause it and we cannot stop it. We can only guide it to ensure that all life survives the transition." She went on to explain that similar convergences had occurred in galaxies throughout the universe. Species that embraced the process evolved into beings of incredible power and wisdom. Species that resisted were swept away by changes they could not understand or control. "We offer you the same choice that was offered to us," Laura said. "You can evolve with us and help shape the new reality that is coming, or you can remain as you are and trust us to protect you during the transition. But you cannot stop what is happening." As weeks passed, the galaxy began to change in visible ways. Space itself became more flexible, allowing ships to travel distances that had once taken months in mere hours. Time began to flow differently in various regions, creating pockets where past and future coexisted. Most remarkably, conscious beings began to experience expanded awareness. Artists found themselves creating works that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Scientists discovered equations that described the mathematics of reality itself. Even ordinary citizens reported dreams and visions that seemed to come from parallel versions of themselves. Dr. Maya Rodriguez, working with data from the transformed humans, made a discovery that completed the picture. The convergence was not just about merging dimensions, it was about elevating consciousness itself. Every thinking being in the galaxy would have access to abilities that had once been considered godlike. "We are witnessing the birth of a new form of existence," Maya reported to Earth's leadership. "Consciousness itself is evolving, becoming something that can actively participate in shaping reality." Back on Earth, the revelation sparked a mixture of excitement and apprehension. Some people eagerly awaited the chance to evolve beyond their current limitations. Others worried about losing their humanity in the process. President Wells addressed the world in a historic speech that was broadcast to every nation and colony. "Our children who vanished into the void have returned as architects of a new reality," she said. "They offer us a choice between remaining as we are or evolving into something greater. The decision belongs to each individual, but we face it together as humanity." As the speech concluded, reports began coming in from observatories around the world. The stars themselves were beginning to change. Constellations shifted as space became more fluid. New colors appeared in the spectrum as dimensions began to merge. The transformation was accelerating, and soon every being in the galaxy would face the choice that the human fleet had faced months ago. They could cling to their current existence, or they could step forward into a reality where consciousness itself had no limits. Above Earth, the transformed fleet took its position as the guardian shepherds of galactic evolution. Dr. Carl Watson sat in his laboratory at the Earth Science Institute, surrounded by equations that hurt his brain to look at. For weeks, he had been trying to understand how the transformed human fleet could do impossible things. The answer, when it finally came, changed everything he thought he knew about the universe. The breakthrough happened when Captain Jake Morrison's exploration team discovered something in the Vega star system. It was a space station, clearly built by humans, but using technology that seemed to mock the laws of physics. The station existed, in normal space, but also extended into dimensions that human eyes could not see. Morrison's team approached the station carefully. Their sensors showed it was abandoned, but the energy reading suggested it was still partially active. The station's design was recognizable as human engineering, but it incorporated materials and construction methods that were completely unknown to Earth science. "This is Morrison to Fleet Command," Jake reported as his team docked with the strange station. "We're going aboard. The structure appears stable, but I'm reading energy patterns that make no sense." Inside the station, Morrison's team found corridors that seemed to stretch forever in some directions while being impossibly short in others. Rooms existed that were larger inside than the station's external dimensions could contain. It was as if the builders had learned to fold space itself like origami. But the most important discovery came when they found the command center. Thirkir. Room contained logs and records left behind by the original occupants. The name on the command console made Morrison's heart skip a beat. Commander Helen Price. Morrison activated the log system with shaking hands. Helen Price's face appeared on the screen, but something was different about her. Her eyes seemed to look in multiple directions at once, as if she could see things that existed in dimensions beyond normal space. Personal log Commander Helen Price, day unknown. The recording began. Her voice carried the same strange harmonics that Lieutenant Ben Adams had detected in the radio transmissions. Time has become fluid here. Past and future seem to exist simultaneously. I am recording this message for whoever finds this station, though I suspect that person may be myself from a different timeline. Morrison and his team watched in fascination as Price continued her log entry. She spoke of discoveries that challenged every assumption about the nature of reality. We found it 3 days after we entered the void zone, Price said, her image flickering as if it existed in multiple dimensions. An ancient network of gateways left behind by a civilization that transcended physical existence millions of years ago. The network was not just for transportation. It was designed to elevate species beyond their current dimensional limitations. The log continued with Price describing how her crew had made contact with the network. They had expected to find a transportation system that would allow them to explore distant galaxies. Instead, they found something that offered evolution itself. The network chose us, Price explained. Not because we were the strongest or the smartest species it had encountered. It chose us because we were the most adaptable. Humans have always been survivors, always willing to change and grow when faced with new challenges. Morrison felt chills as he watched Price describe the transformation process. The ancient network had not forced evolution on the human crews. It had offered them a choice. They could remain as they were and continue exploring space in their limited dimensional existence. Or they could accept transformation and become beings capable of existing across multiple realities simultaneously. Most of us chose to evolve, Price continued. The process was not painful, but it was indescribable. Imagine suddenly being able to see colors that don't exist, to hear sounds from dimensions you never knew were there. We became more than we were while still remaining human at our core. The recording went on to explain that the transformed humans had gained the ability to manipulate the fundamental structures of reality. They could reshape space and time, exist in multiple locations simultaneously, and perceive the connections between all dimensions of existence. But with these abilities came responsibility. The ancient network had been created by a species that had faced a cosmic crisis millions of years ago. Reality itself was unstable, prone to collapse if not properly maintained. The network's builders had evolved beyond physical existence to become the caretakers of the universe itself. We are now part of that eternal duty, Price explained. We maintain the stability of space-time, prevent dimensional collapses, and prepare the galaxy for a great convergence that will merge multiple realities into one stable system. Morrison transmitted the entire log back to Earth immediately. Within hours, Admiral Carter and his top scientists were analyzing Price's revelations. The implications were staggering. Meanwhile, Major Tony Garcia was leading a joint investigation team to explore other sites where the transformed humans had been active. They found evidence of massive engineering projects that spanned multiple star systems. The transformed humans were not just traveling through space, they were actively rebuilding it. On a dead planet in the Centauri system, Garcia's team discovered geometric patterns carved into the planet's surface. The patterns were visible from space and seemed to serve as dimensional anchors, points where different realities could be safely connected. They're preparing for something big, Garcia reported to his superiors. These anchor points are appearing throughout the galaxy. It's like they're building a framework to support some kind of massive change to reality itself. Dr. Maya Rodriguez received Garcia's data and combined it with her analysis of the energy signatures the transformed humans had been generating. The picture that emerged was both wonderful and terrifying. The transformed humans were preparing the galaxy for a convergence of realities. Multiple dimensions would be merged into a single, stable system that would allow all conscious beings to exist in expanded states of awareness. It would be the greatest evolutionary leap in cosmic history. But the process required careful preparation. Reality had to be reinforced at key points to prevent collapse during the convergence. The transformed humans were working as cosmic engineers, building the infrastructure needed to support a new form of existence for all galactic civilizations. Back on Earth, the revelation sparked intense debate among world leaders and scientists. President Patricia Wells convened an emergency session with representatives from every major nation and organization. If what we're learning is true, Wells addressed the assembly, our missing people have become the guardians of reality itself. They're preparing to transform not just humanity, but every intelligent species in the galaxy. Some leaders saw this as humanity's greatest achievement. Others worried about the implications of such massive changes to the fundamental nature of existence. Dr. Watson presented his analysis to the group. "The mathematics check out," he said, though his voice carried uncertainty. A convergence of multiple realities is theoretically possible. It would create infinite possibilities for growth and exploration, but it would also mean the end of existence as we currently understand it. The debate continued for hours. Some argued that humanity should try to contact the transformed fleet and offer assistance. Others believed that such massive changes should not be attempted without the consent of all affected species. But as the discussions continued, reports began coming in from across the galaxy. The alien civilizations that had once dismissed humanity were now scrambling to understand what the transformed humans were doing. The Zephyrian Empire had detected reality distortions near several of their core worlds. The distortions were clearly artificial and seemed to be preparing their space for some kind of major change. The Crystalline Collective reported that their homeworld was experiencing temporal anomalies. Time was flowing differently in various regions, as if someone was testing the effects of dimensional manipulation. Even the ancient and powerful Void Dwellers, a species that existed partially outside normal space, admitted they had encountered human activities in dimensions they had thought were inaccessible to younger races. The galactic community, which had spent months mocking humanity's disappearance, now found itself facing the reality that humans had not just survived their vanishing, they had evolved beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. Ambassador Lisa Grant, who had endured months of condescending treatment from alien representatives, found herself in an entirely new position. Suddenly, every major alien power wanted to know what Earth knew about the transformed humans. "We know as little as you do," Grant told the assembled alien delegates. "Our people have become something beyond our understanding. We can only watch and hope that they remember their origins and care for the galaxy they left behind." But even as she spoke, Grant wondered if the transformed humans could still be called their people. The beings manipulating reality across the galaxy had retained their human memories and personalities, but they now existed on a scale that dwarfed planetary concerns. Were they still loyal to Earth and humanity? Or had their evolution made such considerations irrelevant? The galaxy would soon find out, as the preparations for the Great Convergence continued to accelerate across every corner of known space. Captain Susan Lee was having a normal day hauling cargo between star systems when she saw something that would change everything. Her ship, the Morning Star, was a simple freight vessel designed to carry supplies to remote colonies. Susan had been flying cargo runs for 15 years. She thought she had seen everything space could offer. She was wrong. The Morning Star was traveling through the Proxima sector when reality itself seemed to tear open in front of her ship. Susan watched, in shock as space split apart like fabric being ripped by invisible hands. Through the tear came something impossible. A fleet of ships emerged from what could only be described as a hole in the universe. Susan counted over 300 vessels, all moving in perfect formation. The ships were unmistakably human in design, but they had been transformed into something beyond her understanding. Each vessel was massive, easily 10 times larger than the original colony ships that had disappeared months ago. The hulls gleamed with energy patterns that made Susan's eyes water to look at directly. The ships seemed to bend light around them, creating rainbow effects that danced across space. "My God," Susan whispered, her hands gripping the controls of her small ship. "What are those things?" The transformed fleet moved as a single entity. There was no visible communication between the ships, but they acted with perfect coordination. They turned, accelerated, and changed direction as if they shared one mind. But the most shocking thing was not their size or their coordination. It was the fact that Susan's sensors could not get consistent readings on them. One moment the ships registered as solid matter. The next moment they seemed to be made of pure energy. Sometimes they appeared to be in multiple places at the same time. Susan activated her emergency beacon and began transmitting everything she saw back to Earth. The images and sensor data would take months to reach home, but she knew this was the most important discovery in human history. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Ben Adams was monitoring communications from his post on the lunar base when something extraordinary happened. His equipment picked up a transmission on emergency frequencies. The signal was strong and clear, coming from somewhere, in the Proxima sector. The voice that spoke was human, but the words made no sense to Ben's trained ear. "Phase transition complete. Temporal anchors stabilized, initiating convergence protocol. All units report dimensional status." More voices responded to the first transmission. Ben recognized several of them as crew members from the missing colony. Ships: Captain Helen Price, Commander David Morgan, Lieutenant Sarah Wells, all people who should have been dead or lost in space. But their voices carried strange harmonics, as if they were speaking from inside a vast cathedral. The words they used were not part of any Earth military vocabulary. They spoke of dimensional matrices and reality convergence and temporal anchoring. Ben recorded everything and sent it immediately to Admiral Carter on Earth. Within hours, similar fleet sightings were reported across 17 different star sectors. Each emergence was preceded by the same impossible tearing of space that Susan Lee had witnessed. Admiral Carter stood in the command center of Earth Fleet headquarters, staring at reports that challenged everything he thought he knew about physics. His best scientists were telling him things that sounded like fantasy. "The ships exist in multiple quantum states simultaneously," explained Dr. Carl Watson, his face pale with shock. "They appear to occupy several locations at once, while also existing partially in dimensions we cannot perceive." General Kevin Stone pointed to the tactical display showing fleet positions across known space. "Every time these ships appear, they demonstrate capabilities that our technology cannot explain. They move through solid matter. They travel distances that should take months in mere seconds. They seem to ignore the laws of physics entirely." Admiral Carter had helped design the original colony ships. He knew their capabilities and limitations. What he was seeing now bore little resemblance to the vessels that had left Earth months ago. "Order all remaining Earth forces to maintain distance but continue observation," Carter commanded. "I want to know everything about these ships, but I don't want to provoke them until we understand their intentions." Commander Nicole Foster was piloting the reconnaissance ship Endeavour when she received orders to investigate one of the mysterious fleets. Nicole was Earth's best pilot, known for her ability to get close to dangerous targets without being detected. But as she approached the transformed vessels, Nicole realized that stealth was pointless. The ships seemed to know she was coming before she knew it herself. They made no aggressive moves, but Nicole felt watched, studied, analyzed. She managed to get close enough to scan one of the smaller vessels in the fleet. The readings her instruments provided made no sense. The ship registered as being there and not there at the same time. It showed up as solid matter, pure energy, and empty space simultaneously. "Endeavour to Fleet Command," Nicole reported, her voice tight with tension. "I'm getting readings that violate everything I know about physics. This ship exists in what appears to be a quantum superposition state." The transformed vessel suddenly turned toward the Endeavour. Nicole felt her heart race as she prepared for possible attack. But instead of weapons fire, she received a communication on standard Earth frequencies. "Commander Foster," said a calm voice that Nicole recognized as Captain Helen Price. "Please maintain your current distance. We do not wish to cause interference with your dimensional stability." Nicole's hand shook as she responded. "Captain Price? Is that really you?" You've been missing for months. Everyone thought you were dead." The reply came with a slight delay, as if Captain Price was translating her thoughts into words that Nicole could understand. "We are not dead, Commander Foster. We have become something more than we were. We exist now in states that transcend your current understanding of life and death. Please return to your base and inform Admiral Carter that we will make contact when the time is appropriate." The communication ended, leaving Nicole alone in space with questions that had no answers. She returned to Earth with sensor data that would keep scientists busy for years. Dr. Maya Rodriguez received the data from Nicole's encounter and began the most important analysis of her career. The readings showed that the transformed humans had indeed transcended normal physical existence. They had become beings capable of existing in multiple dimensions simultaneously. But how had this happened? Maya studied the original colony ship, manifests looking for clues. The missing fleet had been equipped with experimental jump drives that manipulated space-time. Perhaps something had gone wrong with the drives, trapping the crews in a dimensional accident. Or perhaps something had gone right in a way no one had expected. Maya's analysis suggested that the transformed humans were not trapped or damaged. They had evolved. The energy patterns she detected indicated conscious control over their quantum states. They were choosing to exist in multiple dimensions. But why? What purpose could such an existence serve? The answer came from an unexpected source. Captain Zix Thul, the mantis-like cargo hauler, reported another encounter with the Phantom fleets. But this time, the invisible ships did something different. They began changing the space around his vessel. Stars seemed to shift position. Gravitational fields became malleable. Time itself began to flow differently in some areas while remaining normal in others. "They are not just traveling through space," Zix Thul reported to his consortium superiors. "They are reshaping it. These humans have learned to treat reality like raw material that can be molded and changed." Word of Zix Thul's report reached the Galactic Council within days. The alien representatives who had dismissed humanity months ago now found themselves facing an impossible truth. The primitive humans they had mocked were demonstrating capabilities that surpassed anything in galactic civilization. The Zephyrian military commander stood before the council assembly, his blue skin pale with worry. "We may have greatly underestimated this species. If they can manipulate reality itself, they pose a threat to the established order of the galaxy." But some council members saw opportunity instead of threat. The Crystalline Collective's representative spoke in musical tones that conveyed excitement. "Perhaps these transformed humans could teach us their methods. Think of the possibilities if we could learn to reshape space and time." Back on Earth, President Patricia Wells convened another emergency session. The reports from across the galaxy painted a picture of humanity's missing children returning as something unprecedented in galactic history. "The question we must ask," said General Stone, "is whether these transformed beings are still human. Do they retain their loyalty to Earth and humanity? Or have they become something entirely alien?" Dr. Watson had been studying the communication patterns from the transformed fleet. His analysis suggested that while the beings retained their human memories and personalities, their perspective on existence had been fundamentally altered. "They think differently now," Watson explained. "They perceive reality from multiple dimensional viewpoints simultaneously. This gives them capabilities we can barely imagine, but it also means they may no longer share our concerns or priorities.